PUV Modernization Program, China, nag-aalboroto, at Maynila, worst traffic. Kamusta Vormy? This is Avor Joseph and welcome to News I Deem Worthy Recap Weekly Edition number 34. We've done to cover since last week, so skip to the timestamps provided if it piques your interest. Get maganda na for the blazing slide of summation. Here are some page news commentary for your convenience. Mga nagpoprotestang Tsuper, Hinarang. Hinarang ng PNP ang mga nagpoprotestang Tsuper ng grupong Piston at Manibela laban sa PUV Modernization Program ng LTFRB DOTR sa Welcome Rotonda na nag-aamba at most likely will result in their loss of livelihood for their whole life. Nagsimula ang kilos-protesta caravan ng mga Tsuper sa UP Diliman Campus papuntang Welcome Rotonda, diretso hanggang Mendiola. Sinasabing ang dahilan ng barikada ng mga pulis ay ang kawalan ng permit upang magprotesta. Now, aside from the fact na kailangan mo pa ng permit para magprotesta, I mean, that doesn't really serve the whole purpose because freedom of assembly or whatever and some kind of principle in their striking, or as we see now, protesting. The goal of a protest or a strike is to first cause inconvenience, the very least cause commotion. It poses serious questions with the integrity of our supposedly free country. Talagang mahihinuha mo yung sinasabi ng iilan na class traitors ang pulisya dahil sa kanilang pagpoprotekta sa mga bourgeoisie class or bourgeois class, paminsan-minsan pa'y gagamit ng dahas laban sa kanilang kapwa manggagawa, aka a class traitor, just because that's what they're paid to do. Nililinaw rin ni LTFRB Chairperson Teofil Guadis na hindi pa required ang pagpapa-phase out or pagpa-phase out at pagpapalit ng mga traditional jeepneys to a modern jeepney from China or even here in the Philippines with a 3 million to 1 million peso SRP. I don't know if there's an SRP for that, but anyway, ang focus talaga nila ngayon, or at least yun yung sinasabi nila, ay ang pagbubuo ng mga Tsuper ng mga kooperatiba. Now, why? Well, you'll watch the NIDW recap episodes later on in the video. Ayon sa LTFRB, 76% na ng mga PUV ang consolidated sa buong bansa, ngunit mahigit 1,000 ruta ang mawawala sa lansangan sa buong bansa at 300 ruta naman sa Metro Manila, which is a lot. These are the previous NIDW recaps para sa mga nakaraang linggo. Do be mindful na ang ilang stats sa mga previous NIDW recaps ay hindi na ganoon ka-accurate, ngunit or at least dahil wala namang masyadong nilalabas na stats ang LTFRB. Also, if you want, just skip para sa China page with respect to one China policy. Or ayon sa LTFRB, just before matapos ang office hours ay nakapag-consolidate na ang mga major routes sa NCR, samantalang ang mga rutang wala masyadong nakapag-consolidate ay pwede nang ipasalo sa mga major routes na nakapag-consolidate after the January 31, 2024 extension. Of course, may malaking chance na ang mga rutang iyon ay nabawasan na ng mga units na babiyahe dahil rito ay mas bibigat pa ang pressure sa mga rutang ito aside from the usual bigat ng kanilang ruta kung idadagdag pa ang mga quote-unquote minor routes. Ngunit dahil nga hindi pa nare-release ng LTFRB ang mga rutang with less than 60% consolidation rate dahil raw marami ang mga last minute na kapag pa-consolidate noong December 31, 2023, hindi mo na manguhuli ang mga MMDA officers ng mga Tsuper na hindi nakakapag-consolidate, or at least not really the listahan itself, pero Jeffrey Epstein and stuff. Here is the full PUV modernization saga ng ating NIDW recap. Kung gusto yung skip yung PUV modernization saga na paulit-ulit kong nilalagay sa mga NIDW recaps, well, you can skip the timestamp provided for the next news. Ayon sa Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board o LTFRB, sila ay magpapublish ng listahan ng mga ruta na may less than 60% consolidation rate ng mga number of authorized units o NAU, kung saan ang mga unconsolidated or unconsolidated individual operators ay maaari pa rin makapag-operate at pumasada up until January 31, 2024 so long as they meet this 60% less or at least less than 60% consolidation rate sa kanilang mga ruta. Matatandaan nating nasa around 30% lang and ang consolidation rate sa mga jeepneys at 44% naman sa mga UV Express units na bumabiyahe sa NCR, all around total of 35% in totality ayon sa LTFRB NCR District Office. Which just goes to show you na napakaraming operators ang hindi pa nakakapag-consolidate, lalo na yung mga hindi pa nakakapalit ng kanilang mga engine para maging Euro 4 compliant. Matatandaan Tatandaan rin natin na naghain ng petisyon ng grupong Piston para iprotesta ang ipinupush ng LTFRB patungkol sa konsolidasyon ng mga units. Sinasabi nilang kapag sila isumali sa isang kooperatiba o korporasyon, mawawala na ang ownership ng kanilang mga unit, especially sa mga single operators among other concerns. Bagamat hindi pa naghahain ng Supreme Court of the Philippines ng TRO patungkol sa PUV Modernization Program, inuutusan na ng Korte Suprema ang DOTR at LTFRB upang mag-respond sa petisyon ng grupong Piston sa loob ng 10 araw, although that would be after January 1. So, I don't even know if that would make any difference, but so long as the January 31, 2024 deadline na sinasabi ng LTFRB patungkol sa less than 60% consolidation rate, well, they could in theory put the TRO back on the table. Nagprepare na rin ang mga LGU sa posibleng impending transport strike o transport crisis sa Pilipinas leading up to at after the December 31 deadline. This is becoming very bad para sa mga commuters, operators, drivers at sa gobyerno. These people are the bulk of the masses na naglagay sa inyo sa inyong posisyon. Lalo na yung mga nasa masa or yung mga populace of the working class, yung mga proletariats. Not to mention, Pasko at Bagong Taon. Napakapangit na prospect or yung visuals, lalo na yung nangyayari ngayon, na yung mga isang tukang jeepney drivers at mga commuters magsa-struggle or at least mawalan ng kabuhayan at syempre less alternatives sa mga ruta at mga PUVs na pwedeng gamitin to and fro work to, get some bread. It really is a situation that should be approached differently. Ang baba pa nga ng subsidiya na binibigay nila. I think it's around 210,000 to 280,000 para sa mga Class 1 vehicles to Class 3 vehicles. Ang daming kilos protesta ang nangyari sa Kalakhang, Maynila patungkol sa impending deadline ng DOTR LTFRB na patuloy pa rin nangyayari even up until now. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang mga kilos protesta laban sa impending PUV Modernization Program. Nag-file ng petisyon ang grupong Piston laban sa umaambang PUV Consolidation at Modernization sa Korte Suprema at ngayon naghahantay ng desisyon upang pigilan ang nasabing modernisasyon. Nag-file sila ng petisyon sa Korte Suprema upang maitanong kung legal nga ba ang mandatory consolidation para sa mga kooperatiba kapalit ng permit para sa unang araw ng Enero 2024. Nagkaroon ng transfer strike o tigil pasara noong December 14 at December 15, 2023 na pinamunuan ng Piston o pagkakaisa ng mga samahan ng Tsuper at operator nationwide. Although, of course, nag-upisa sila nung 14 pa lamang at sinundan naman sila ngayon ng Manibela o Malayang Alyansa ng bus employees at laborers to the 18th of December hanggang 29th of December patungkol sa konsolidasyon at pag-phase out ng mga traditional jeepneys na hindi pasok sa standard ng Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board o LTFRB na i-implementa sa ika-31 ng Disyembre 2023. Kumbaga, this is a last-ditch effort o Hail Mary kung saan gusto nila iparalisa yung transport system ng ating bansa, especially sa NCR, para malaman ng gobyerno o ng LTFRB DOTR na talagang hindi kakayanin ng Pilipinas and basically our metro system to handle such a consolidation or at least yung pag-phase out nga or pagtanggal ng prangkisa ng ating mga Tsuper operators. Sinasabi ni President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. na 70% ng mga operator ay nakapag-commit at nakapag-consolidate na under the new Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program o PUVMP. Ayon sa datos ng DOTR LTFRB, the statistic kung saan sinasabing 153,000 out of the 222,000 o 69 nice 0.8% have compiled or at least have complied with the PUVMP, samantalang 1,739 na kooperatiba or bagong kooperatiba na ang nabuo kasunod ng mandatong ipinatong ng gobyerno. Ngunit maraming nagsasabi at least yung mga transport groups na hindi ito yung big picture or at least hindi ito yung full picture or at least kung saan tayo dapat nakafocus. Masyadong inflated yung mga numbers na ito. Sinasabing kasama raw sa statistic na ito, yung 70% ang mga bus at minibuses pati na yung mga UV Expresses. Now, minibuses I understand kasi they're practically para sa mga traditional jeepneys, pero ayon sa Rappler na kinuha ang datos sa Piston, only 26% lang at 36% lang ng jeepneys at UV Express units respectively ang nakapag-consolidate, samantalang nationwide 84,000 out of the 150,000 or around 56% or 57% lamang ang na-consolidate. 26% sa jeepneys at 36% sa mga UV Expresses or at least sa Kalakhang, Maynila lamang ang nakapag-consolidate. Well, talagang makikita mo na mahirapan or at least mahahamper yung mga operators or at least yung mga jeepneys or at least yung public transportation system natin sa December 31 deadline. We don't even know if we should call these as public transportation as they are privately owned, although it's not like they could all strike. I mean, wala silang pera, they don't have the money to do it and they can't sustain them for very long. That's why paulit-ulit na lang or at least dalawa-dalawang araw, dalawa-tatlong araw lang yung PV strike. Although this would be the last ditch effort kung saan from December 18 to December 29 talagang complete stop na sila sa kanilang or at least yun yung gusto nilang mangyari. Gusto nilang complete stop on all their operators or at least all their jeepney operators. Sinasabi ko lang magiging transport crisis sa Pilipinas, which may very well be true, pero remember, ang commuting is not just the commuters but also the drivers, conductors, and operators as well. I mean, them taking the money na otherwise would be spent on goods in malls and luxury items will be better spent sa mga jeepney kung saan mas madaling mag-circulate yung pera, making it more viable to the economy rather than lining the pockets of the richest of the rich in the Philippines. Kumbaga, at least ginamit natin yung pera na mapupunta dapat sa mga tsuper. Well, sa tsuper, gagamitin agad nila yung pera na yun because there will be no spare expenses sa kanila. Samantalang kung bibili tayo ng luxury goods sa malls or anything for that matter na, kumbaga sinisave lang nila yung pera nila in a vault somewhere para silang dragon na nag-hoard ng gold, well, hindi nila isi-spend yun and therefore hindi mas-circulate sa economy, which is what we want with the money kasi nga, that's how economies work in general. And if binigyan lang natin sila sa mga kumpanya tulad ng SM na hindi naman sa sinasabi kong bihira sila mag-develop but masyado silang corporatized at marami silang liquidity or financial holdings kung saan yung wealth nila naka-stock away lang, hindi nila ginagamit yun. Consolidation talaga yung fino-focus ng ating DOT or LTFRB. Umaangal ng mga transferred groups sa planong pag-phase out ng mga hari ng kalsada ang mga traditional jeepneys na hindi pasok sa standard ng LTFRB sa kontrobersyal na Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program, citing high cost of the newer models adding burden to the isang tukang jeepney drivers. And they postponed it like 6 years now. So I don't think there are any more leeway to be given. But it's still a governmental agency, which means they can do whatever the fuck they want and will have no say with what goes in and out. Sinabing ang mga modern minibuses na nire-recommend as the alternatives made in China costs too much. Around 3 million pesos each at the high end and 1.5 million pesos for the lowest end according to the LTFRB. Samantalang ang ating mga jeepney drivers ay hirap makabayad ng kanilang boundary kada araw. And although I am talking about the operators that will shoulder the cost, it will still be the drivers who will be taking the punch. Not to mention yung kakarampot na 210,000 to 280,000 na subsidiya ng gobyerno per operator or at least per unit na bibilhin ng operator or ng jeepney driver or whatever cooperative na nag-consolidate as a result of this modernization program. Isa yan sa mga concern, ang mga operator na nagme-may-ari at nagpaparenta ng kanilang traditional jeepneys para sa boundary ang maapektuhan ng malala ng naturang pag-face out ng decrepit at bulok na PUV jeeps. Pag-may-ari nila ang mga jeeps na suddenly ay magiging obsolete starting January 2024. Though, to be fair, bihira sa isang tsuper na sila ang magme-may-ari ng kanilang minamanehong jeepney, which is in fact a crucial shame, pero it's more in the standpoint of gagamitin lang nila yung jeepney na yun and then they'll pay for the boundary and then do whatever they want. Hindi na nila kailangan isipin yung repair cost, maintenance cost at saka yung parking lot. So that was a plus for them. But still, hindi sila yung may hawak ng means of production nila, which in that case was the service na pinoprovide nila as the drivers sa mga ruta. I don't want to get too deep into the dialectical materialism, pero that's basically how it goes. I approve of the jeepney modernization program dahil sa mga pasaway na tsuper, mga bulok na sasakyan na hindi lang hazard sa environment, kundi hazard rin sa aesthetic at safety ng mga mananakay at mga taong nasa kalsada, which is mostly mga tsuper at mga pasahero nila because of the open unfiltered air emissions at yung pag-inhale ng emissions ng mga decrepit at bulok na jeepneys. I approve of the jeepney modernization program because of the implications at mga pinupush ng LTFRB tulad ng pagsiset up ng mga tsuper ng kooperatiba or corporations or whatever na binubuo ng mga jeepney drivers, not just operators yung single link operations, upang hindi sila magunahan at mag-compete sa mga mananakay na isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit sila nagbe-break ng mga pamantayan sa lansangan. It also standardizes their salaries and even employment benefits if they're lucky. Not to mention the dreaded boundary system sa single driver to operator model na nagpo-proliferate kung saan naiuwi na lamang ng ating mga mamang tsuper ay kakalampot kapag tinanggal na yung cost ng crudo at boundary. Because even in the system of operator to jeepney driver relationship, sila pa rin magbabayad sa crudo na gagamitin nila. I don't want to antagonize the operator, the owning class, and the laborers, the drivers, kasi basically in the same vicinity, they're basically in the same class, just with different holdings. Sa kooperatiba, magkakaroon sila ng say sa mga desisyon ng consolidated cooperatives instead of individualized. Kasi kapag kooperatiba, na-democratize yung desisyon na ginagawa sa isang korporasyon o kooperatiba as I said. Kung saan, ang mga manggagawa ang may-ari ng makinarya ng kanilang pagkita at makademokrasya ang pagdesisyon nila sa kanilang trabaho. Anything related to their work, like participating in strikes, fares, benefits, at syempre collectivized and communalized yung responsibilities at duties ng mga jeepney drivers. Kaya I am definitely approving of the cooperative system na pinupush at yung consolidation na pinupush ng LTFRB. Kasi with a consolidated fleet, mapupush yung mga drivers to, be more mindful of how they treat the lansangan kasi nga an accident or any misguided recklessness in their driving could result into the whole operation stopping or at least pausing for a minute. Ngunit of course, ang papasa ng cost na yan ay ang ating mga jeepney drivers pati na yung mga biyahero at parokyano ng one-in-a-kind transportation method na kailangan taasan ng boundary o lease sa mga ginagamit ng jeep. Pair that with high inflation, disproportionate fare hikes at presyo ng crudo, talagang ang bilyones ng subsidiya ang kakailanganin para mapalitan ang nawawalang capacity o mawawalang capacity ng local transportation method ng ating mga syudad. Isa pa sa mga kritisismo ay ang soulless at bland design ng mga minibus na i-import pa galing China. Maraming nagpupush na tulungan ng gobyerno ang mga lokal na industriyang aangkop sa lokal na demand ng mga modern jeepneys. At least yung aesthetics will be the same as the traditional jeepneys, just with a bit more twist. 30 to 60% I think of the fleet is already modernized and hindi naman kailangan yung may aircon and all that stuff. It is recommended pero hindi naman yun yung main focus ng modernization program, or at least yung nakaraang transport strike proved it to be negotiable. It's more on the makinarya at engine na ginagamit to be Euro 4 or Euro 5 compliant with regards to their engine. So at least yung aesthetics will be the same as traditional jeepneys kung ang gagawa is yung local na industriya at meron ng ganong locally made vehicles na pinoproduce but of course with limited capacity. But yes, I approve of union work as they give bargaining power to the working class and that those that produce value in a company or any institution of money-making endeavor. Sure, it's disruptive, but that's what protests are supposed to do. Else, what does inconveniencing you does? And in this case, the bosses are the government who wants to implement sweeping changes measures that could potentially cripple their bottom line, the approval of the people, and crippling those relying on the income generated in this endeavor. It doesn't matter if I don't agree with what they want to accomplish. Union work is union work, and we cannot impede on that front. We have freedom of assembly. Albeit, I see their protesting as more of an overreaction kasi nga marami rin transport groups ang did not participate in this kind of disruptive transport strike kasi nga they're probably overreacting. But yeah, I do agree with some of their points. The officials from LTFRB and MMDS said the strikes did not make a difference or dent in the transportation capacity of the country. I think they said they have 680 reserved vehicles to deploy kapag nagkaroon ng triple transportation mobilization, pero they have only deployed like 10% of the total fleet. I mean, freaking scabbers. Anyway, by branding them as scabbers, we cultivate animosity inside the working driving class, which we do not want. Kasi nga kailangan natin sila bigyan ng breathing space, as in dialectical materialism. We need to cultivate a class consciousness at hindi dapat natin pinag-aaway yung people with the same cause. Kasi nga pag nagkaroon ng animosity between two sides of the same coin, the bourgeoisie or the owning class would be the only one benefiting sa squabble na ito. The scabbing isn't a huge statement with regards to the hold of the union, rather a statement on the lengths of our hardworking drivers will go to out of desperation just to break even and put food on the table. The broken system that perpetuates the misery and poverty. The reason why I even agreed to the proposal was because of their bargaining back then. I mean, it reduced the phased out vehicles from all traditional jeepneys to just those that are decrepit and literally have parts falling off the road, and that's the only goal, or at least, and that's the greatest overall win we could ever achieve, along with some minor improvements sa mga existing traditional jeepneys. Although I agree they should up the loan and grants / subsidies to be given to our Tsuper. For this is the supposedly unintended result of boosting importation from modern jeepney manufacturing countries like China, of which the Philippines has little to none. Kaya I was pushing for the local government to have some protectionism of our local industries with regards to this kind of stuff. Kasi nga traditional and basically modern jeepneys are an essential part of the public sector and public utility vehicle in general, and transportation also. Kailangan natin magkaroon ng backbone of a local industry to supply and meet the demands of the market. China, PH should respect one China policy. Nang batiin ni President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ang pagkapanalo ng bagong presidente ng Taiwan from the DPP parties, the separatist party, more hostile to the People's Republic of China and its goal of reunification sa Twitter/X, biglang pinatawag ang ating ambassador to China upang paniwalanagin ang patuloy na paggalang ng One China policy na kumikilala sa People's Republic of China as a legitimate and sole authority over the Chinese domain, including the Taiwanese islands. Iginiit naman ng Pilipinas na pawang relief lamang or at least strategic ang pagbati ng ating presidente sa newly elected president of Taiwan dahil sa daang libong Pilipinong naninirahan at nagtatrabaho sa islang iyon. I mean, Wang Zilian already does that. Sinabi Wang Zilian, the Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, na kailangang respetuhin ng Pilipinas ang kanilang soberanya patungkol sa Taiwan at other internal affairs, including the Uyghur Muslims and some stuff that I'm too tired to mention. Maalala rin nating tila'y parang tinatakot ni Wang Zilian ang gobyerno ng Pilipinas patungkol sa pagpapaalala na nasa interes ng Pilipinas ang kapayapaan at peaceful reunification ng mainland China at Taiwan Island dahil sa daang libong Pilipinong may ipit sa gulo kung patuloy pa rin tayong ang ating gobyerno sa pagsuporta sa US hegemony at Taiwan noong nakaraang taon lamang. The fact of the matter is, no matter how much we try to spin the admittedly bad move by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., I mean, congratulating the Taiwanese candidate that won the presidential election, we should have just stayed quiet, to be honest. The PRC is already hostile, and we cannot afford to be on their bad side. I mean, even better side. I mean, both literally and figuratively. Else we face possible Chinese sanctions, which might be unlikely, but likely enough for us to assure, or at least assume, the worst and place it as an absolute certainty. Senator Jinggoy Estrada acquitted of plunder. Nakwit ng Sandigan Bayan si Senator Jinggoy Estrada sa kasong plunder kaugnay ng kanyang alleged pagtanakaw ng kabanang bayan gamit ang Priority Development and Assistance Fund o PDAF, most probably known as their pork barrel. I made a script for that but totally forgot about it and I haven't really. Allegedly, kakonsyaba niya si Janet Leonopolis at ng kanyang chief of staff. Bagamat naabsuelto si Jinggoy sa reklamong plunder, siya na may napatunayang guilty ng direct at indirect bribery sa PDAF scam. Now, this is pure speculation and this is not fact, okay? I don't want to be sued, but is it not weird na whenever na-acquit ang mga big-time pork barrel users / scum, SCUM, MERS, lalo na sa mga senador, parang ang nagiging fall guy or at least fall they ay ang kanilang chief of staff na naglalaho or at least naglaho kahit ang mga senador na ito ang mga lumagda sa endorsement letter para mabigyan ng go-ahead sa mga bogus projects, lalo na ng mga NGO ni Janet Lim Napoles. smells fishy, sounds suspicious, tastes like betrayal of the people, and feels yuck. Some silver lining though sa indirect at direct bribery, which I gotta say, I respect these lawyers kasi akala mo yun, ilang daang milyon probably or ilang dosenang milyon ang probably and allegedly nakuha ni Jinggoy Estrada na ibaba niya sa direct at indirect bribery. Para siyang plea bargain under the table with no admission of guilt. Only implication. Pero posible siyang sintensyahan ng 8 to 9 years imprisonment and perpetual disqualification to vote and a measly 3 million peso fine dahil nga, tumanggap siya ng advanced lump sum yata, I'm not really sure, with 2 to 3 years and suspension to run for public office. But since it's not final and he can still appeal the decision of the Sandigan Bayan, well, he can still serve and even run probably, but it would be after or at least long after the finality of the decision has already been made. Here are some PH news for your convenience. Marcos attends Brunei royal wedding. Pumunta sa Brunei si President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. para umattend sa isang royal wedding between the fourth son of Brunei's Sultan, Prince Abdul Mateen, and his longtime partner, young Mulia Anisha. According to him, this would be a typical and most likely just purely work diplomatic visit to strengthen the ties between the Southeast Asian nations of Brunei and the Philippines. Pasig River's 18 billion peso beautification project. Nailunsad na ang programa upang mapaganda ang Ilog Pasig na mayroong 18 bilyon, or at least that's what they are hoping to raise investments para sa Pasig River urban development na naglalayong gawing accessible, dagdagan ng parke, bike lanes, lakaran at buhayin muli ang 25 kilometrong promenade sa magkabilang side ng Pasig River. They're aiming for beautification of the river from Laguna de Bay to Manila Bay sa loob ng 3 taon, which is naive, but that's what they have got to do. They can't really just say we can do this in 20 years because that's more realistic kasi they are also trying to rehabilitate the river itself, not just those surrounding, okay? Not just doing some repainting just like what they did with the Manila Post Office. Inilaunch ang campaign upang makahanap ng donasyon sa likod ng nasunog ng Manila Post Office na nagpapakita ng 500 metrong embankment upang makaakit ng private investors and anything for that matter. Ang project, basically, they're trying to show off what they could do with 18 billion pesos para sa buong 25 kilometer side-to-side Pasig River. Buhayin muli ang Pasig River. And I kind of like this just because of the SMDC has proposed to add highways or expressways along the Pasig River, which we don't need more roads. We need less people needing or at least compulsed to pick private transportation rather than the traditional public utility vehicles like trains, jeeps, buses, and Surigao del Sur 5.7 magnitude earthquake. Niyanig ng 5.7 magnitude na lindol sa bayan ng Hinatuan sa Surigao del Sur sa Mindanao nitong kinaumagahan ng January 18 na nag-cause ng massive panic at mass evacuation dahil sa lakas ng pagyanig. Ang epicenter ng nasabing lindol noong January 9 ay nasa 48 kilometers northeast sa bayan ng Hinatuan at may lalim na 10 kilometro ayon sa Department of Science and Technology, Philippine Volcanology and Seismology o DOST PHIVOLCS. Metro Manila worst congested traffic in the world. Ayon sa datos na inilabas ng TomTom International BV, ang Metro Manila ang may worst congestion ng traffic sa buong mundo and possibly sa buong kalawakan. Lalo pang lumala ang tagal at bagal ng daloy ng trapiko sa Metro Manila ng 50 segundo. Ayon sa datos, every 10 kilometers nasa-stuck sa traffic ang mga biyahero ng 25 minutes and 30 seconds on average. Now, albeit I have gripes with this considering most of the times it's just the fudging car owners dealing with this crap or that. Our cities are not that too car-centric considering you can buy all your grocery needs in palengkes or sari-sari stores, and the fact that Metro Manila is so freaking small yet so freaking compact. Having 12% and more of the Philippine population just because a lot of people from the nearby provinces is coming to Metro Manila in the day and then going out night, with 30% of the country's economic output, with 0.212% of the Philippine population or Philippine land area, and 20 times denser than the second most dense area in the Philippines. I mean, the top 10 in the most dense cities in the world, well, a lot of it is Filipino. It'll be congested as a constipated person eating dynamite wrapper thingamajig with sile and some giniling, or a spicy Taco Bell. I mean, imagine being congested after you just ate a dynamite or a spicy Taco Bell. I mean, that would be. But of course, I'm not going to just defend the government with our lackluster public transportation and or even just the synchronization and as accessibility, since sa EDSA carousel they need to go up to the footbridges just so that they could get to the buses. And of course, I love the EDSA carousel bus just because we don't have to see some buses trying to switch lanes whenever they want. But of course, albeit it's not too car-centric, or the Metro Manila is not too car-centric, and for the matter, the Philippines compared to, say, the US, it certainly is still car-centric or car-centric for cities. From my home to the university, sometimes it takes me upwards of 1.5 hours to travel around 10 kilometers while using the train. I mean, imagine that for the bulk of the transportation. Most of the time though, it's just 45 minutes. I'm always purposefully and most significantly, fashionably late. Santo Nino de Tondo Lakbayaw Festival 2024. Matapos ang ilang taong pagpapaliban sa Lakbayaw, there's of course pandemya, just like what the reason was for Nazareno. Lakbayaw, by the way, a portmanteau of the words lakbay at sayaw, meaning to explore and dance. Nasagawa muli ang pagpupugay sa batang imahen ni Jesucristo isang linggo after ang paglalakbay ng pasyon ng poong Nazareno sa Quiapo and Ermita, and I'm not sure, even Ubal too, right? Ayon sa Manila Police District, umabot sa 5 digits ang sumamas at nakapag-celebrate sa Lakbayaw, bata at matanda. Of course, I said 5 digits just because I can't find a reliable source how many people really did attend the Lakbayaw, because it's not really the feast itself. I mean, mind you guys, that day is not the feast itself, okay? Pinangunahan ng mga mag-aaral sa Holy Child Catholic School at mga competitors ng dance competition na Hiraya 2024 ang Lakbayaw at pagmamarcha sa Tondo. Mind you guys that day is not the feast of Santo Niño de Tondo. It will be on Sunday, which I guess would be today's, considering it's like 1:17 a.m. right now and I haven't slept for so long. Pero anyway, I remember the times when makikikain ako sa mga bahay ng kaklase ko, sa mga kaibigan ng pamilya, at sa lahat ng nag-imbita. Those were the good days. And albeit hindi ako makakamunta sa maingay, admittedly magulo, madumi, ngunit masayang handaan at piyesta. I hope I could join y'all to there someday. Of course, hindi magpapahuli ang ilang mga lalawigan ng bansa, particularly Cebu, which is the home of the oldest Santo Niño in the country. I'm not really sure, but I'm going with that. I think ayun kasi yung dahilan kung bakit nag-convert, or at least this is a pivotal statue, changed the course of time, lalo na para sa mga Cebuano na nag-convert sa Catholicismo just because, maganda yung estatwa, maganda yung doll nila. They're of course much more grand with their celebration sa bisparas ng fiesta ni Santo Niño. So that's nice too. Here are some global/international news for your convenience. Trump won bigly. The Don himself, DJT, won the Iowa Republican Caucus bigly with 51% and a 30% lead against the second place, Ron DeSanctimonious, or Meatball Ron, or Ron DeSantis, with a 21% of the mostly white evangelical rural Republicans. Iowa is one of the first states to hold their Republican primaries in which the people rarely nominates the person they would want to elect come voting in November. The Iowa caucus is a pivotal, although largely trivial and definitely symbolical primary, considering it's not a swing state anymore and have voted for Trump since 2016. Although it gives the candidates some waters to test on whether they should or should not continue their candidates, especially now that they're fighting for second place against Trump himself. It's an essential, although imperfect, state to measure the country's support in particular candidates, giving them either a huge boost in morale or the end of their presidential aspirations. Just like Vivek Ramaswamy. Obama, after his speech in the Democratic National Convention back in 2004, reinvigorated his supporters and triumphed against Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primaries, of course, Iowa. First, Clinton is the wife of the scandalous former president Bill Clinton, which gave the future President Barack Obama a huge boost in his campaign when he won the Iowa caucus with a, hold your breath, 7% lead ahead of Hillary Clinton. Now imagine Trump with 30% lead against the second place Ron DeSanctimonious. You can see that if Trump isn't the primary, or at least not the nominee or the Republican nominee, then this shit is cool. This is part of an established common knowledge that the Don DJT will be the Republican presidential candidate even if he ends up in jail in Georgia and could even win with the 90 or 100 plus civil and criminal cases against him with regards to attempted election tampering, insurrection, and business fraud. This means in almost all realities that there will be a rematch between the incumbent Joseph Robinette Biden and the former President Donald John Trump, both really old, competing for the highest office, arguably in the entire world. At yan ang pagtatapos ng News I Deem Worthy Recap Weekly Edition for roughly the third week of January 2024. Mag-suggest more topics and or corrections to the balitas if you feel I misrepresented them in any way. Salamat sa panonood mga kabayang. Avoid me, like, subscribe, and follow my links in socials on Avoid Joseph with the link down below. Sa susunod muli, paalam. Sa susunod muli, paalam.